Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a bit of an odd hypothetical today, and I would ask you for a little bit extra rope. Give me a little bit of room to maneuver here, because I want to explore the core concept that the words we say, our word choice, in this area of law, as with any area of law, and really all walks of life, matter. Our word choice matters. The words we say matter more than what we meant. And to that end, let's get into it. We have an individual who went on social media and called the CEO of the company they work for a fascist. And social media being such as it is, someone saw it, shared it, and this person was eventually terminated for calling the CEO of their employer fascist. Now, that's our fact pattern. My first question is, what did you mean when you said fascist? Now, we can jump on the Merriam-Webster definition, and we'll read it into the record. A political philosophy or movement or regime that exalts a nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized, autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe and economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Now, there is a second definition that's a little bit less useful to us that says a tendency toward or an actual exercise of strong autocratic or dictatorial control. And right off the bat, everyone in the U.S. political sphere right now is like, that's the one I meant when I called the people I don't agree with fascists. Because what passes for political discourse in the U.S. right now is just, of course, everyone's a fascist. If I don't agree with you, you're a fascist. And really none of those people necessarily have a firm grasp of what that word means. But that's not our problem. We're not in politics. Our problem is employment law. And believe it or not, which definition you meant of fascist will depend on whether or not, will determine whether or not you can be fired for what you said on social media. Trust me, I know. Stick with me here. Now, when you said fascist, did you mean autocratic? Did you mean a bully? Did you mean, was it a reference to the racial hierarchy that certain fascist governments have tried to utilize, right? Was it that you meant to say the CEO is unequitable, is not fair? Did you mean the CEO is greedy? Did you mean the CEO is authoritarian? Did you mean the CEO is Machiavellian? Greedy, unscrupulous, scheming, cunning, right? Is the CEO short-sighted? Penny wise, pound foolish, right? And the CEO is doing big cuts now, cutting important employee benefits that will spike the share price in the short term, but hurt the company in the long term by getting rid of highly skilled staff. Or is it the CEO is just uncaring or stupid, right? And a really savvy defense counsel might want to know how you meant the word fascist. Here's why. If you meant the full definition, the full first definition of fascist, which gives voice, I should say, to the issue of race that comes up in that definition, I would argue you've engaged in a protected activity. You've complained of discrimination on the basis of race. So you've complained of negative workplace consequences on the basis of a protected class. And when you complain of that, which is defined as discrimination, you've engaged in a protected activity under the federal laws. You may have also engaged in protected activity under state and local laws. But generally speaking, that's the only definition of fascist that I'm aware of, that I was able to pull up with the Google, that would qualify as protected activity. And unfortunately, for the purposes of your potential claim, that's not generally what people mean when they say fascist in the United States in 2024 or 2023 or the 2020s, generally speaking. So if you then want to sue for retaliation for being terminated for calling the CEO of your company a fascist, you're actually going to have to prove that what you meant was the first definition, as per Merriam-Webster, which includes that issue of exalting one race over another, which is in and of itself clearly discrimination, right? And of course, I assume everyone knows this, but that's largely referring to the Nazi Party, right? Like the Nazi Party and the horrible, horrific things that they did. I don't know to what extent that was also a part of Mussolini's fascism or Franco's fascism. I don't know. I wasn't there, right? But clearly, if that's what you're referring to, you do have a claim. And I would say potentially a very solid claim, except that you have to prove that your posting on the internet did give voice to the racial component of that definition, right? And it's really that clear cut. If you meant any of those other things, in almost any jurisdiction in the U.S., you can probably just be fired for saying that. Like, you can certainly be fired for saying mean things about a CEO. You just can't be fired for opposing discrimination in the workplace, right? And so, believe it or not, you might find yourself in a position of someday trying to prove what you meant in your social media post. Is that stupid? It almost doesn't matter, right? Because one gives you access to a number of laws that protect you. One definition gives you that access. All the other things you might have meant, do very little for you. And so, we have our answer. Depends on what you meant, believe it or not. Now, if this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Helps our channel to grow. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time on this one. I know this was not the most fun videos, but it matters because there's a lot of people that I speak to who call me up with questions like this, and they have trouble getting their head around the idea that they're going to have to prove what they meant. Right? Did you complain? What did you complain of? Did it count as protected activity? Does it fit the elements? These are the things, the razor's width that your claim can balance upon. And if you can prove, yes, it was protected activity, then boom, you got a retaliation claim. You're in the game, right? And that's good. I want you to not be able to get fired. But I'm not a crazy person when I have that conversation with you, right? I'm not just being patronizing or pedantic when I say, well, what did you mean by fascist? And I don't know how many attorneys are going to take the time to do that with you. And I don't really blame them for that, because when you do take that time, often people start to scream at you. And I get that too. It's frustrating. The idea that it's this narrow, right? That's frustrating. I get that. I don't blame any plaintiff for that, any potential client for that. But it doesn't change the law. The law is the law. And as with people get mad at me about a video I make, an answer I give, often my response is, what do you want me to do, lie to you? I'm going to give you not the law? I'm going to give you a fake version of the law that makes you happy? That's silly, right? That's silly. So here too, it's silly. You need the real answer. And the real answer is, wow, that's way more complex than I thought. And it adds a lot of complexity to this case. But like, maybe we can make it work. Anyways, like, subscribe, comment down below. Helps the channel to grow. Take care, everybody.